Hi, I'm Joni Patry and welcome to our Get Astrologic Now YouTube channel. And today I want to talk about a message about October. October is going to be a really intense, eventful month. You know, like all these months have pretty much been for such a long time. But we've got the eclipse season coming up in October, and we've got a solar and lunar eclipse. But the lunar eclipse, in this case, far outweighs the solar eclipse. Why? Because it's total. And the solar eclipse, it's going to have Rahu and Ketu out of sign with the sun and the moon. But this total solar eclipse that occurs on October 8th is so intense. I've never seen planets like this in such a configuration. And what I want to talk about is where the moon is, because we're talking about a lunar eclipse. And a lunar eclipse is where we have the full moon. The sun and the moon are in opposition. And Ketu is with the moon, and Uranus is with the moon. So actually we have the moon, which is wedged between Uranus and Ketu. This is extraordinary because these are symbolic of unexpected, pivotal results or events, and I think it's going to be much more of the same of what we've been experiencing: revolutions, rebellions, war. But there's going to be something about this that is just simply a surprise, because Uranus always catches us by surprise, and there's going to be just an explosion. So on the 8th of October, I pulled up the chart, looking at the chart of this lunar eclipse, and I was surprised to find the configurations of the planets. First of all, besides the eclipse, the moon being with Ketu and Uranus, Jupiter is casting an aspect from the sign of Cancer. Well, this eclipse occurs in Pisces. So we've got Jupiter trining the moon from Cancer to Pisces, as well as we have Mars in Scorpio. So we've got this grand trine between Mars, Jupiter, and the moon and Ketu. This is powerful. It's in water signs. We're talking about Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio. And in this grand trine, this is like emotional events. Also, don't forget, being in water signs will have a major effect on the weather concerning rain, torrential downpours. And anytime we have eclipses, this eclipse season is always about earthquake season. So you're going to find more earthquakes, tsunamis, and definitely volcanic eruptions. Everything is like churning and burning and rising from all this. I also noticed the nakshatras that these planets are in. That we have, the moon is in Revati, we have Jupiter in Aslacia, and we have Mars in Jesta. These are all nakshatras that are ruled by Mercury. Therefore, Mercury becomes very important during this time. And I was noticing that, of course, in October, we've got Mercury retrograde, and it's going to be in Libra with Saturn. So this makes Mercury very, very important. And what does Mercury rule? How we process information, how we think, and of course, travel, commitments, communications of all kinds. So expect all of these areas to go haywire during this time, particularly because we got an eclipse and Mercury retrograde. But also with Mercury being with Saturn, this is fear. There is intense fear brewing during this time. And I also noticed that Mercury being in Libra, well, we've got Mars in Scorpio, and we got Sun, Rahu, and Venus in the sign of Virgo. So actually the Sun, Rahu, and Mars are sandwiching in Mercury and Saturn, which is called Papakatari. When malefic planets sandwich in other planets, it prevents them from being able to process and function. Not to mention also Venus, the planet that could give us peace and hope, is in the sign of Virgo, which is debilitated. And Venus and Mercury, Mercury is in Libra, and Venus is in Virgo. they're in Parivartana as well. They exchange signs. But Venus is combusting close to the sun. And it's in the same sign as Rahu, and it's debilitated. So as Mercury's dispositor, Venus, is weakened to this capacity, there is no sign of peace being able to come about, because Venus is the planet that deals specifically with peace projects. So this is at a loss. And Mars, I noticed Mars in Scorpio. Remember this, that Mars in Scorpio, Mars takes approximately 2 years, 18 months or so to cycle through the entire zodiac. So right now it's in Scorpio. And approximately 2 years to 18 months, it's going to come back to Scorpio. This is going to be in the spring of 2016. During this time, Mars will go retrograde in Scorpio with Saturn. And I might add that there is a very important fixed star in Scorpio called Antares, and it is the star of war. So what I'm getting at is that right now, while Mars is cycling through Scorpio, and it is a sole dispositor, in other words, there's no other planet that this Mars disposits to, it's by itself. It is powerful, it is focused, and it's pretty nasty. So this Mars, what's happening right now, this month of October, is very significant in terms of laying the groundwork or laying the foundation of what is to come when Mars cycles back here and will retrograde with Saturn in the spring of 2016, where it will remain for approximately 7 months in this sign. There is going to be very, very specific and powerful and dangerous events occurring between now and then. Of course, we'll have a rest period in between, but whatever's happening now will determine what will happen later. It's like laying the groundwork or putting the seeds in for what's to come. So, and last but not least, always you must look at the outer planets in terms of giving the big picture of what is happening globally. And we've had for such a long time the Uranus-Pluto square. This has been going on for a couple of years and will continue through another year and a half at least. And this was the aspect that was so reminiscent of the 60s, of all the rebellion, the social uprising, and war. And here we have this cycle happening again. It happens, these two planets are in hard aspect approximately every 35 to 40 years. And so the 60s was the last go round with that. Now we're dealing with this again. So it's social uprising, war. That's the big picture. And then to whittle down to see what's happening this month is very, very significant based on all these variables of the grand trine, of the solar eclipse with the moon and K2 and Uranus. And also, don't forget, we're looking at Mercury as being so significant, retrograde, so much is going on. Be prepared. And be prepared to stay out of fear, because everything's going to be pushing people to be fear-based. And that's where you fall into all of the negativity that this is producing. You don't have to do that. Please, please be aware that through being positive and not surrendering to this fear-based mentality that all these planetary energies are producing, you will prosper. So with that, I'd like to close. Remember, if you would like a reading, you can always go to my website, which is galacticcenter.org. Thank you.